Okay, so the plan is to install aircon in this bedroom, and this is the unit that's just arrived. It's a completely self-contained unit. It has two ducts on the back which go through the wall to the outside world. So there's no external unit, but it is, I think it's a 3 kilowatt unit, and it does heat and it cools. So it's a bit of a shot in the dark, but give it a go. It's sold as a PowrMatic. That's all one word, but with no E. So it's POWR Matic. But it's arrived in this box, which doesn't say PowrMatic at all. But anyway, let's see what's inside. Already here. Okay, so we've got a bracket, steel bracket with some hooks on the edge. I believe that's screwed to the wall. The whole thing hangs off the bracket. There's a template. I don't know if you can see that, but there are two 162mm holes that need to be drilled through the wall, and a condensate drain as well, 18mm. Not sure what this is. That's for the hole for anti-lifting fixing. Don't know what that is. I have to read the instructions. And then obviously the bracket across the top. Not sure what this is. Oh, electrical connection area. So again, the power obviously needs to come in there. Something else I've got to sort out. Otherwise, there's a sheet of plastic. In fact, two sheets of plastic. I think it looks just like ABS or maybe PVC, about 1 millimeter thick. And I believe this is what you use for lining the 162mm holes for the outside world. So plenty of that. These are the two outdoor vents, one in, one out. I guess one sucks and the other blows. Spring loaded, very light spring. But, that's those, and these are obviously the inside ones. So I guess the plastic sheet needs to be cut so that it fits around these. Obviously, an instruction manual and a remote control, including a battery, CR2430. Obviously, the two vents, drain pipe, 18mm hole needed for that, and mains supply. This comes with looks like a Continental plug, but also this 13 amp adapter, obviously for the UK market, I assume. But obviously I won't be using this anyway. I'll cut the cable and put it into a proper junction box. That might be handy just for testing purposes. It's got a 13 amp fuse in there. I've never seen one of these before actually, but picks up on the earth as well as the live and neutral. So yeah, so that could be handy just for say testing. So that's the front side, fairly neat. The intake is on the top, and it obviously blows the conditioned air out the front, either warm or cold. And a little display on this side. There's no buttons anywhere by the looks of it. It does have say the remote control, and I believe it's Wi-Fi enabled as well. So I assume there's an app of some sort that you can use to control it. Anyway, this is the larger of the two models. They do have one, a mini one that's smaller than this. This one is only 2.3 kilowatts, A rated, and coverage and performance of 3.3. So yeah, we'll see how it works out anyway. So it looks like there's an installation manual, installer's manual, and a user manual, both in English and Italian. Okay, so here's the unit, and this is where it's going to go. I've put the template on, and it's there's just enough room. It needs 50mm clearance at the bottom, 60 to the right, and 200 above, which is where the air intake is, which makes sense. So I've poked holes through in the template. So there are a few issues. If I lift this out of the way for a minute, I started drilling through these big holes and was kind of surprised to find fresh air behind, but realised now, because there's a huge gap between the breeze blocks behind of the double thickness wall and then some studding and the plasterboard in front. And the reason for that is that in the garage there's a breeze block column in effect to stiffen up that wall from wind pressure, I assume. So rather than have recessing this against the breeze blocks and having some jut outs for this column, they've just put a flat wall across with a big gap behind it. So that's a bit of an issue. The other thing is that this stud is clearly going to be right in the middle of the duct. So what I'm going to do, I think, is there's the stud here as well, by the way. What I'm going to do is drill the holes anyway through the masonry, but then if I cut a slot here, I can put a batten or a big thick piece of 2x4 between the studs with a steel bracket either end, and then do the same this side. So I can then drill through the plasterboard into the wood to support this top bracket for the AirCon. I'm also going to have to do something to reinforce this stud. If I cut this away, which I will do, I'm thinking that I will put another piece of studding on the other side as a kind of splint to just stiffen that up and keep its strength the same as it is now, or maybe even more. So yeah, that's the plan. A bit more complicated than I expected. So on the outside wall, there's, you can see the hole for the right hand duct, and then there's a drill sticking out for the left hand one. So I'm just drilling that through now using this SDS Ryobi SDS drill, which is proving just about up to the job. I mean, it's a big hole and a big core drill, and it does. I think it overheats. There's a flash. There's an LED on the front for sort of illumination, but that starts to flash and the thing stops working. I think is a heat overload or some sort of overload. If I back off, leave it for a little while, and maybe take the battery on and off, or off and on rather, then it seems to come back to life. But it's a bit of a pain. It's not really up to the job, but it's through the brick already and halfway through the breeze block. So far so good. Hopefully it'll do the second hole as well. Right, so both holes done. Which I've got to say, I'm pretty impressed by that. This Ryobi drill. I mean, it's only a domestic grade tool at the end of the day, but it's done really well. The RSDS 18X, I think it is. But yeah, it's slightly warm, but it doesn't seem to be any the worse for wear. It paid for itself on the first job I used it on, which was lifting tiles. But it's drilled through both these walls, standard breeze block and a brick wall, which is actually very hard. These 5 amp hour batteries. One of these did both breeze blocks, so that's not too bad. Okay, so this is the plan here. I've just cut this bit of wood to length between these vertical studs and put some brackets on. So I reckon if that's slightly half an inch above the lower edge of this plasterboard, those will be bang in the middle. So if I just slide that in, I'll screw that in place. And we do the same this side and we're good to go, I think. The other thing I'm going to do is to drill a hole through the floor into the garage ceiling, and I'll put a cable through, because the fuse box is down here somewhere just below. So that should be a nice easy run. There's a spare slot in the fuse box or consumer unit, so that's straightforward. I'll just run that cable up to the power on the, or I'll put an isolator in, of course. I've got some power to the aircon here. Right, so pretty much done. Doesn't look very pretty, but there's holes through the plasterboard, out through the breeze block and through the brick wall, same both sides. This is going to be the condensate drain. I'm waiting for an 18mm drill to cut that with. The hanger is on for the actual unit. It's got the hook on either end and plenty of screws. These are going into the wooden 2x4 behind the plasterboard, which is held up with a bracket there and a bracket there. This is the vertical stud, which has been cut off. There's another 2x4 up there with a bracket again either side. And this vertical is screwed into the underside of that new piece, that new horizontal, and it's attached to the original horizontal, which is lying on top of the rafters down there. So yeah, so this stud, although it's cut off there, it is actually supported because it's got this vertical adjacent to it. I couldn't go any farther left because of this hole. So things left to do are to cut a hole through the ceiling, which is above the fuse box. The fuse box consumer unit is pretty much here in the garage below. So I'm going to go down 120 centimeters from the column, which is over here, that supports the steel joist in the roof of the garage. So yeah, I'll drill a hole through there, and that'll drop me down just to the right of the consumer unit, so I can put a spur in. This is kind of interesting. So these, what look like tubes, are actually a flat sheet of plastic that you have to fold round and then cut to length, and if necessary to the diameter or circumference rather. But in this case, because my wall is so thick, because of this dummy wall here with the brick breeze blocks well behind the plasterboard, so I've got half a metre of length, thickness of the wall. So I had to put the PVC sheet, which is this stuff, around the other way, as it were. So I had the long side, it's a rectangular sheet, have the long side reaching 4.5 through the wall, and when I bent it round the other way, it just works out to be the right size. So I've used some just some duct tape to stick the two sides together. That's at the top of the duct, and seems to work okay. These springs for the holding the outer vent flaps, it seems to be quite a good idea. It seems to work. So that's all good. I obviously need to tidy up some of this mess around the where these holes are, but I'll do that later. The only other issue I've got with it being such a thick wall, in effect, is that this condensate hose isn't long enough. So what I'm going to do, having given it some thought, is drill a 22mm hole through the wall rather than the 18mm that they recommend. So I've started that already over here, but this goes all the way through now. But it's not 22mm, it's 18mm. So I'll put a length of this 22mm tube through, cut it to length, and luckily this hose is just the right size to fit inside. So, and it is on a slight incline downhill, so any condensate should just run straight into the copper tube and out the wall. So the unit's been in for a couple of days now, and seems fine. It seems to cool the room down. It's only been about 25 here so far, but outside that is. But it certainly keeps the room cool. So the isolation switch is on there. Obviously, it goes down to the fuse in the garage, or the breaker at least. It's currently off. This is actually touch sensitive, as I've mentioned before. Remote control works fine, controls all the functions except for scheduling. But the app, it does come with an app, and sure enough, that's connected to our Wi-Fi now. So yeah, this will turn it on And obviously you can control the set point, 22 on there, 22 on here. So you can increase that. But also on the app, you get the opportunity to schedule on-off times throughout the week. I haven't used that yet, but it is available on the app, but not on the remote control. Everything else that's on remote control is on here. So yeah, so far so good. I guess it's long-term reliability remains to be seen, but so far we're very pleased. Okay, thanks for watching.